7 characteristics of a high-performing manager. This session, I think, will be an interesting one because what we're going to talk about is not just the 7 characteristics of a high-performing manager, but really the characteristics or the attitudes, if you will, that really help us get everything that we want out of life, both personally and professionally. And I'd like to just think about that for a moment. Let's think about what are the results that we want out of living our lives. Not what we must have or what we can have, but as you really think about it, if you were to ask people that question, what are the results that you want out of living your life? What kinds of reactions do you think you'd get from people? Anybody?
Love. Okay,
yes, we want love, absolutely.
Respect?
Yes, respect, certainly.
Happiness?
Happiness, absolutely.
Friendship?
Of course, friendship. I mean, do any of us wake up in the morning saying, I think people like me a little too much, what can I do today to create an enemy? No, okay, yes, we certainly want friendship. What else do we want?
Success.
Yes. I mean, is anybody here saying I'm succeeding a little too much? What can I do to fail? Okay, yes.
Recognition.
All right, yes, we want recognition. Yes.
Money.
Well, let's think about that for a second. On first thought, I would say yes. I mean, we all want money, but think about it for a second. Do we want money, or do we want the security or the freedom that money brings? I mean, for example, I know of people that jumped out of windows because they were down to their last $50,000. I don't care whether that was dollars, pounds, marks, but they were down to their last $50,000. They jump out of a window. I know people that have jumped into a window for $50,000. So really, isn't security a matter of perspective? And as a matter of fact, as you look at the things that we've talked about, what we're really talking about is not really anything tangible, but they're really feelings that we get. I mean, for example, can anybody really achieve happiness where we go, okay, here's my happiness, it's in a box right here? Or can anybody achieve respect? Okay, really they're feelings. We have that sense that we're respected. And as a matter of fact, as you look at a lot of these things, many of them are things that we get from other people. For example, we get respect from other people. We get recognition from other people. We get friendship from other people. And those things have to be given to us willingly. I mean, for example, if I walk up to you, grab you by the throat and say, be my friend. You know, I mean, a likely response is, okay, I'm your friend. Well, for how long? Well, assuming that I'm bigger and stronger than he is, and at least until he can get away. If he happens to be bigger and stronger than I am, not very long at all. Okay, we can't demand friendship from people, or respect, or recognition. They have to be given to us. And yet so often in our lives and in our business careers, we're so focused on getting things. Sometimes I think that it's helpful if we take a look at what causes us to give people things. What causes us to give people our respect, our recognition, our friendship, our trust? What causes us to want to do things to make people feel special? Because don't we all have people in our lives where we go, you know, I want them to be happy. And what can I do to contribute to that? And so I'd like to just think about that for a second. As you think about people that you've known and that you've met, what are the traits or characteristics that you admire in other people? And what I'd like you to do just at your tables right now is to take just 60 seconds to just discuss with one another what are the characteristics or traits that you admire in other people. Okay, what are the characteristics or traits that you admire in other people? And I'd like just one person to sort of keep track of that as you go along. And the person that'll keep track will be the person who drove the furthest distance to be here today. So check it out. You've got about 2 minutes. Go.
You won.
Expensive pens.
Oh, this is big. Because I'm in it. No.
That's a humor.
Okay, thank you very much. What I'd like to do is just go from table to table, and we'll start with this table right here. And could I just have a high sign? Who did the recording at each table? You did, you did, you did, and you did. And so what I'd like to do is just go from table to table and ask you to give me, say, two of the characteristics or the traits that, that your table came up with. Okay, and why don't we start with two from this table?
One was self-directed
Okay, self-directed, good.
and enthusiasm.
All right, and we like people that are enthusiastic. They have good energy. All right, good. And from this table?
We have people who are honest and people who follow through with what they say they're going to do.
Okay, so people who follow through and people who are honest. All right, great. And this table?
We had people who were unselfish and supportive.
Okay, people who are unselfish and who are supportive. All right, and finally this table?
People who were credible
Okay.
and people who had integrity.
All right, people who are credible and who have integrity. Now, what you've just described are really personality traits. And I want you to notice what you didn't describe. Nobody said, you know, we like people who lack confidence. We like low energy people. We like people who lie and who cheat and who steal. We didn't say any of those things. What I want you to notice is that for the most part, what you gave were very positive descriptions. And personality is really an outward reflection of inner attitudes. It's really our way of displaying for other people what we are on the inside. And the question then is, if this is what causes us to be attracted to other people and to give them our respect and recognition and trust, etc., it stands to reason that if you and I focused on developing those personality traits, then we could reasonably expect to gain a greater measure of respect, of trust, of having other people place their confidence in us, etc. You know, the problem is that so many times it is easier to be negative than it is to be positive. I mean, let's say, for example, that you're a manager that's in charge of a production group, and the sales manager in your company has just called you and said, I just got an order, and it happens to be the biggest order that your company has ever received. And the manager's excited, you're excited, you tell your people, they're excited. I mean, visions of bonuses are floating through everybody's head. And now, 24 hours later, you arrive at work and there's a message, urgent message to call that sales manager immediately. What's the immediate thought that goes through our minds? Lost the sale. We don't think, whoa, probably even doubled the order. But immediately, it's negative. Sometimes it is easier for us to be negative than it is for us to be positive. And yet the interesting thing is this. We burn 3 times as much energy when thinking negatively as when thinking positively and in control of our emotions and actions. We burn 3 times as much energy when thinking negatively as when thinking positively and in control of our emotions and actions. Let me see if I can give you an example. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're all single. Okay, now for some of you that's easy because you are. For the rest of you, imagine it anyway, but not too vividly. All right, so you're all single, and it's just been one of the worst days on your job that you can ever imagine. Everything goes wrong. Nothing goes right. Everybody hates you. Nobody loves you. And it seems as though every time you look at the clock, it's moving backward. And the day just drags on and on and on. As a matter of fact, by midday, you've got the beginnings of a headache. An hour later, it's a severe headache. And by the time you walk out to your car, it's about to split. I mean, so actually, you don't even walk out to your car. You slump out to your car. You slump into it. You drive home. You walk in the house. You collapse on the couch. And as you're laying there, totally whipped, totally exhausted, totally drained, the phone rings. And it happens to be a person that is the apple of your eye. I mean, you've really been sort of attracted to this person. And you didn't even know that this individual knew that you existed. But boy, you sure wouldn't mind going on a date with them. And this person says, you know, I know it's really short notice, but just this afternoon, I happen to get a couple of tickets to, and they name an event you've been dying to go to. But it has been sold out for months. And not only do they have 2 tickets, but as they describe them, you realize they're the 2 best seats in the entire house. And so the person says, I wonder, would you like to go with me tonight? And so we say, you know, I really appreciate the offer, but it's just been such a bad day. I think I just want to take a nice hot bath and go to bed. Right? Wrong. Instantly, we've got all the energy we need to go out and enjoy that evening's activity. And there's only been one thing that changed, and it changed just like this. What is it? Our attitude. We burn 3 times as much energy when thinking negatively as when thinking positively and in control of our emotions and actions. The problem is that negatives have ways of disguising themselves as positives, and that's especially true in organizations. Negatives have ways of disguising themselves as positives. Let me give you 3 examples. We confuse doubt, which is negative, with caution, which is positive. We confuse fear, which is negative, with realism, which is positive. And we confuse criticism with evaluation. Let me see if I can illustrate that for you. It's not that I have any doubts about this project, but I do think that we ought to proceed cautiously. I move that we appoint a committee to oscillate, vacillate, procrastinate, gather facts. And if this committee takes long enough, we may not have to make the decision. And if we have to make the decision and it turns out that we were wrong, we've got a lot of people we can blame. And if it turns out we're right, we can all try to grab off the credit. And so doubt, which is negative, disguises itself as caution, which is positive. Or fear with realism. And I see this very especially in sales organizations. I mean, you've got a sales meeting and people are setting their goals. And they're going to aim for the moon and they're going to shoot for the stars until you get to this one person who says, you know, all these big goals I hear sound great, but I'm going to be realistic. And what this person is saying is, I'm going to set a goal so low that if I do nothing, I'll still achieve it. The fear of failure disguises itself as being realistic. Well, let me ask this. Which one of us gets excited over watching somebody high jump 3 feet? I mean, most of this room can fall over 3 feet. All right, but the fear of failure disguises itself as being realistic. And finally, criticism with evaluation. Now, I don't want you to feel that I'm criticizing you, but I would like to evaluate your rotten performance. And so criticism, which is negative, disguises itself as evaluation, which is positive. And you see, sometimes I think that if you really want to be able to tell the difference in what someone is saying to you, or even in what you might be saying to somebody else? Look at the difference between intent. Why am I saying this to you? Am I saying this to you because I want to build you up? I want you to be more effective? Or am I saying this because I want to tear you down? I want to make you feel bad. Matter of fact, I'm having a bad day, and I'll feel better if everybody else around me feels bad too. You know, it's like someone who is 5'6" but would like to be 6 foot tall. If I just cut 6 inches off of everybody that's 6 foot, we'll be the same height. Well, being the same height doesn't make me 6 feet. So let's think about what's our intent when we say something to someone. You see, there's a difference between judgment and discernment. Judgment is pointing out with a view to condemnation. I really want to come down on this person. And discernment says I'm pointing out with a view to improvement, or with a view to correction, or a view to restoration, to making things right. And I think that's what we need to look at as managers, but we also need to look at it in terms of our other relationships. Why am I saying the things that I say to other people? Am I doing it because I want to improve things and make them better? Or am I doing them just because I feel that need to give someone a little bit of a dig, a little bit of a needle? And think about it. I mean, do we really enjoy needles? Do we really enjoy those digs? Oh, give me another one. That was really good. Not on our most normal days, I suspect. All right, so then the question is, we've got these personality traits, they're related to attitudes, and there are actually 7 attitudes that if you and I will work on developing them as managers and as individuals, it'll increase the impact that we have, the credibility that we have, the integrity that we have, and the results that we have with other people. And let me give you those 7. First of all is understanding. Now, I don't think that it's possible to totally understand every single human being, but I believe that it's possible to have an attitude of understanding. Matter of fact, a friend of mine, Bob Conklin, tells a story that I think fits perfectly here. I want you to imagine for a moment that you've just gotten the car of your dreams. Matter of fact, this car hasn't been invented yet, but we'll call it a Zephyr 360. I mean, any car you can imagine, this car is better. And you've been saving, you've been working, and so finally you go down to the showroom and you pick it out, and it is gorgeous. And so you get into it, and you're driving down the street, and you're smelling the smell of that car. You're seeing the admiring stares of people as you drive by because this car has just barely become available. You've got one of the first in your area. And as you're driving along, just feeling so good about this experience, this investment. I mean, you deserve this. And as you're driving along, suddenly a little boy steps out from behind some bushes, looks at you, bends over, picks up a hard object, and throws it full force against the side of the car with a tremendous thud, crack, crash, scrape, every horrible sound you can imagine. Well, you immediately pull over the curb, you get out of the car, you look, and there's a big dent and gash in your brand new car, and you haven't even gotten it home yet. And as you turn around, the boy is still standing there. So you start off after him. Actually, you're probably not even walking. But you start off after him, and you start thinking about what's wrong with kids nowadays. What's wrong with his parents? How come they're not raising him right? There ought to be a law against this. This kid needs to be disciplined. He certainly should pay for the damages. And just as you get up to the little boy, he says, you know, I was really sorry to do that to your car, but my little brother is over here behind the bushes. He's just been hurt real bad. It was the only way I could think of to get you to stop. Could you please help him? now what would we want to say to that boy? Haven't we suddenly developed an attitude of understanding? Now, he still probably shouldn't have done what he did, but all of those negative attitudes have suddenly been replaced with an attitude of understanding. So I don't think that it's possible to totally understand another person, but I think that sometimes it is possible to wait a minute and not judge the action of somebody before we explore perhaps the intent of what they did. And haven't each of us in our lives done something that backfired? And it backfired because somebody just judged our action and never gave us the opportunity to explain why we did it. Because we did it for an entirely different reason than they perhaps thought of. So understanding. Then anticipation. And anticipation means to me that we're looking forward to good things. And haven't we all known people that the best years of their lives are behind them? They're always looking at the past. I remember when I did this. I remember, I see a few of you work with some people that are like that. Instead of anticipating the good things yet to come in the future. And don't we like people that have that forward orientation? So a sense of anticipation. Expectations. In other words, a positive view of people. That we expect the best of them and we want to bring out the best in them. Expectations. Confidence. We like people who have confidence. As a matter of fact, wouldn't you rather work with people who are perhaps a little bit too confident and you've got to tone it down than someone that you have to keep on pumping up, and the second you stop pumping, they start draining down again? All right? Confidence. Then patience. We admire people with patience. I mean, have you ever said, gee, I wish you were more impatient? You know, or I admire your impatience. No, we admire people who are patient, who just have that sense of calm. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not storm, that doesn't mean that there's not conflict, but they just seem to have that sense of calmness. They're almost like oil on troubled waters. Okay? Patience. And then humility. Now, I don't mean putting myself down. I'm nothing. I'm a worm. Step on me. Let me give you a definition of humility that we developed. I have been conducting a course for more than 20 years now called Adventures and Attitudes. And I think the focus that we took in that program is really the focus I want to convey here. And that's humility as a realization of and an emphasis of the importance of others. See, it's not putting myself down, but it is really lifting others up. And it's recognizing the value of other people. Humility is a realization of and an emphasis of the importance of others. But you see, sometimes we tend to put people into two categories. And over here we have the important people, and over there we have the unimportant people. For example, let's say that you've had a project that's been due for 2 weeks. For the last week, your boss has been asking you about it every day. For the last 3 days, your boss's boss has been asking. Finally, you've got 30 minutes to finish this project, get it off your desk, and just then the phone rings. And it happens to be the head of your organization, CEO, managing director, whoever that person might be. And they say, you know, I'd like to come over and talk to you for about 20 minutes. I've got some very important news, good news for you. Can I come right now? Now, I don't know about you, but I think that probably each of us would say, absolutely. We wouldn't say, oh, excuse me, I've got this project that I'm working on. You know, we would be more than welcome. As a matter of fact, as they're on the way over, we'd be thinking to ourselves, wow, I'm not going to their office. They're coming to my office. You know, and some of us might even be thinking, boy, I hope everybody notices, because we've already been told that this is good news and it's important news. Now let's say that that person's sitting in our office and 20 minutes goes by, they're still there. 30 minutes goes by, they're still there. 40 minutes goes by, they're still there. Do you think we go, excuse me, you said you wanted 20 minutes and I have this project? Absolutely not. We'd let them have as much time as they wanted, and we'd be totally excited about it. Now, let's say that the situation is exactly the same, and the phone rings, and it's the custodian or the janitor of your building, and they say, you know, I've got some really good news, some important news for you, and I'd like to come over. It'll take about 20 minutes. Can I come right now? Would we offer the same concentrated thoughtfulness? Probably not. But let me ask, who would you miss most if they were gone without a replacement for a year? Okay, see, everybody is important, aren't they? As a matter of fact, Charles Mayo, who is one of the founders of the world-famous Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, said there is no job in this organization without dignity when it contributes to the organization. Every person is important, and humility is a realization of, an emphasis of, the importance of others. And finally, belief. Belief. We admire people who know who they are, where they're going, and who have a sense of, here is what I stand for. Now, the interesting thing is this, is if you look at these, there's really a foundation under them. And that foundation is faith, which is really belief and confidence. Hope, which is anticipation and expectation. And love, which is patience, humility, and understanding. But I also want you to notice what the opposite of those are that tend to get sown in our lives and in our organizations, and that's the opposite of faith, hope, and love, is fear and doubt and hate. And so the question is, how can I get more of one and less of the others? And the process that you and I can begin to use, if we're not already using it, is a process called affirmations. James Allen, almost 100 years ago, wrote a book called As a Man Thinketh. And he likened our minds to a garden. And he said, we can either plant useful seeds which spring up and produce good things, or if we plant nothing, then weeds get sown. And unproductive, unfruitful, harmful things grow up. There is no such thing as a vacuum. We're either getting more of one or we're getting more of the other. And the seeds that you and I can plant in our lives are thoughts. But see, a lot of people will try affirmations, or one of the terms that is used for affirmations today is self-talk. And they say, oh, I tried that positive thinking. I thought a positive thought, nothing happened, so I decided to stay the way I am. And what I'd like you to visualize is, let's say that I had a glass of water, and that water represented all of the negatives that I've been programmed with. I'm not as smart as some people. I can never lose weight. I'll never get ahead. I never get the breaks. I'm not appreciated. And we have all of those. Well, see, people would like affirmations to be sort of like a rock. You just take it, smash it in, it's gone. Well, you know, it took most of us 20 and 30 years, and for a few of us more, to develop all of those thoughts and beliefs that we have. And the idea that any one thought is going to just totally transform that is not too likely. But see, affirmations are more like a grain of sand. Here's that glass of water. I drop that one grain in, nothing much happens. But what happens if I continue to drop those grains of sand in? What will eventually happen to the water? Yeah, it spills over. It gets displaced. But it's not something that's instant. It's a process. As a matter of fact, Maxwell Maltz published a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, and in that book, he said that his research showed that it took 21 days to replace one attitude or habit of thought with another, just as it takes 21 days to develop a new physical habit. For example, if you and I went to another country, and let's say that, for example, in the United States, we drive on the right-hand side of the road. If we were transferred to England, would we say, I guess I give up driving? No, it might be awkward, but at first what we'd do is we'd be very cautious about driving on the left-hand side of the road and the steering wheel in a different position in the car. But after a number of times of practice being very, very cautious, we'd start running on automatic pilot just as we do at home. We wouldn't say, I'm never going to drive again. I mean, if we worked during the day and for some reason we had to start working at night, would we say, I'm never going to sleep again? No, it might be awkward, but we would develop a new habit of sleeping. Well, we can also develop new habits of thought. And it's a choice. And we can do that through the affirmations that we choose. And let me just suggest some to you. I am the predominant creative force in my life. Because I think that sometimes we give responsibility to other people. We're waiting for somebody else to make us happy. Or waiting for somebody else to give us a break. Or waiting for somebody else to give us a promotion. But I can begin to say, I'm the predominant creative force in my life. I am responsible for the things that happen to me. Because if I'm responsible, then I can also make some different choices. And that's what makes us unique as human beings, is that we have the power of choice. We can let things happen, or we can make things happen. I grow in positive ways each day. I am a master manager. And right now you might look at that and go, I am a master manager? But you see, you've got to see yourself doing something before you do it. You've got to see yourself achieving something before you can achieve it. There was a study done at the University of Illinois that related to basketball. And most of you know that in basketball, when there's a penalty, a foul called, oftentimes a player gets to go to a free throw line and they shoot at a basket. Well, what they did is they took 3 groups of students and had them shoot free throws to see how well they could do at that particular activity. The one group, they had to do nothing for 30 days. The second group practiced shooting those free throws an hour a day, every day. The third group sat with their eyes closed and mentally envisioned shooting that free throw, seeing the ball arch up through the basket for 10 minutes a day. At the end of 30 days, they tested them. The students that had done nothing showed no change. They weren't better, they weren't worse. The students that practiced for an hour a day showed a 19% improvement. The students that visualized for 10 minutes a day showed a 21% improvement. They had had an actual improvement in muscle memory in a physical skill through the thoughts that they planted in their minds. That's the power of how you and I think. That's the power of affirmations. So, can you imagine for a moment somebody that would go into an athletic event thinking, maybe I'm not the greatest? And by the way, I mean, this was probably one of the most world-famous athletes of certainly this century, but who sort of coined the phrase, or who's known for saying, I am the greatest? Yeah, Muhammad Ali. I mean, can you imagine if you had a bet on him in a fight, and just before the fight he was interviewed by an announcer, and Ali said, you know, I was thinking today, maybe I'm not the greatest? I mean, you've got to believe that. Think about any favorite athletic team that you've got. Can you imagine the captain being interviewed saying, I think we're just going to get killed today? You know, well, let's get that captain out of there. Let's have somebody else in charge, because you've got to believe, you've got to see it before you can achieve it. Same thing is true with management. I'm a master manager, and I've got to see that, think about that, and again, how do the words that I convey to other people affect the results that I'm going to get? And am I saying those things with the goal of building, or am I saying those things with the goal of tearing down? And the more that we program our own thinking, the more we're able to respond even in negative situations in positive, more productive ways. I am understanding in my relationships with others. And for those of you with children, I believe in, love, trust, and respect my children. And I convey this confidence in my everyday interactions with them. I am patient, skillful, and understanding in dealing with all members of my team. Now, you might say that one the first time and actually say that with a note of skepticism, but isn't that the direction that we want to go? We want to be patient. We want to be skillful. We want to be understanding in our relationships with all of the members of our team. Because some people are automatically lovable, and there are some that are just a little less lovable than others, but they are still members of the team, and we need to find ways to work with them. I'm vitalized by new goals, new dreams, new ambitions, and I face each day with enthusiasm and confidence. And for when problems come around, we might say something like, I'm ready to handle any problem with calmness, confidence, and assurance. And here's one of my favorites. I no longer work, but I have a lot of interesting activities that I do for which I get paid. So let me suggest this to you as an implementation strategy. Let me suggest that you get an index card, a 3x5 card, and choose some affirmations for yourselves. It might be some of those that I've recommended to you, but you can also modify, adjust, or adapt based on your own situation, the areas of growth that you want to experience. Let me suggest that you write them on a 3x5 card. When you get up in the morning, read them aloud once to yourself. Matter of fact, what I like to do is actually say it to a mirror so I can get that facial expression right. And then midday, again, just slip it out, even if I'm sitting there at my desk, and say them out loud. If it's inappropriate to say them out loud, just repeat them silently. I mean, I can understand being in the middle of a group of people not wanting to go, I am a master manager. Okay, but I can certainly say that to myself. And then at the end of the day, see, there's an important reason for writing things down, because you see, writing crystallizes thought, and thought produces action. Don't just think it, ink it. Stephen Grellet, a French-born Quaker who died in 1855, said, I shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any other human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer it nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Our friends, our families, our coworkers, and our employees are looking for someone that can help empower them to become the best that they can be. And if you will develop these 7 attitudes that we've been talking about through the use of affirmations and through focusing on your intent in your communication, so that you become, first, more understanding, that you look at things with a sense of anticipation, you expect the best of others, you demonstrate confidence, you show your patience, you emphasize humility, the importance of others, and belief. Do this, and you'll be well on your way to becoming a high-performing manager.